certificate of completion of training. You might have heard that term used.
Is what.
So only when you get on when you get a CCT, you get on what is called a specialist register. When you're on the register, you're allowed to apply for consultant positions. So that is the game.
I hope now everyone has got some clarity about how to become a consultant in UK. Hello, this is Dr. Dheeraj Masapu. I'm a neuroanesthesiologist, and many of you have been asking the question, what is the scope of FRCA after MD anesthesia? To answer that, I got Dr. Shishir Chandrasekhar, who has done FRCA and CCT in UK, and he is being trained in one of the best hospitals in the world. It is GOSH. It is called Great Ormond Street Hospital, which is one of the best pediatric hospitals in the world. And after that, come back to India and setting the Department of Anesthesia in one of the corporate hospitals in Bangalore. So he is going to tell us the scope of FRCA after MD anesthesia. Let's start the video. So my first question is, so you have finished your MD in Mysore Medical College. So which is MD anesthesia itself is a terminal degree, and studying in Mysore Medical College, such a good college, doesn't require any major training after that. So what is your story of going to UK at that point of time?
I had also assumed that, but then I was proved, I realized that, truth is more layered than that. It's true. Thank you firstly for having me on your show. Yes, I did just as a bit of background, I did my MBBS and MD from Mysore Medical College. I finished my MD in 2003. And going to the UK was all the rage at the time, primarily because that was recently that the route had opened up, and secondly, some of my seniors who had gone there had told me about the varied and wide world of anesthesia that existed beyond the typical medical college scenario. So that was the kind of traditional route that people took after the MD, because the UK had just opened up under a new Labour government. Firstly, I must say one of the primary alluring things for me was the possibility of getting an FRCA, which for us was the terminal degree in anesthesia and still continues to be one of the most sought after degrees in the West. And also the fact of working in another system that was perhaps today the technology and equipment have advanced so much that wherever in the world you practice, the work you and I today do is virtually no different to what is happening in the West. But 20 years ago the situation was different. So it was almost like a business class upgrade, if you think about it that way. We learned the basics very well. Work ethic was excellent in India. Training and theoretical training was fantastic. But this was just liberalization happening at that time. So we did really not have access to that level of technology, complexity and equipment. So all of those things made me go to the UK.
Got it.
So having gone there, my prime thought, like virtually 90% of us at the time when we went from here, is, I'll go do my FRCA and I'll come back. Okay. And then is when I realized that doing the FRCA is only a part of the game. So FRCA is not UK training in its entirety.
People think that FRCA is what we do in UK. What is the actual thing? Some clarity
Correct. So first things first, the FRCA is a degree that is taken by examination. It used to be 2 parts and now there are 3 parts to the degree. Initially an MCQ examination and then a structured oral examination, what we call vivas here, with an OSCE as well. And then the final examination which comprises of both basic sciences and clinical anesthesia. So it is typically done over 3 stages these days. It used to be 2 stages. It is a fellowship that is awarded by the Royal College of Anaesthetists. Another thing that might surprise you is that for a system that is so steeped in culture and history, the FRCA actually is a very recent degree. The Royal College of Anaesthetists only came about in 1993, I think, if I'm not mistaken.
Okay.
Before then, we were actually part of the Royal College of Surgeons. So if you look at very senior anesthesiologists who've got the degree, you might have seen something called FFARCS. It's called Fellow of the Faculty of Anaesthetists of the Royal College of Surgeons. So it used to be a faculty within the Royal College. Then the work of several doyens of our field meant that eventually it was recognized in its own right and the Royal Charter was granted in 93. It's only after that the FRCA is actually been awarded.
Got it.
And I got mine in about 2006 or so.
Okay. So how many years of training? What is it actually?
So, two things. One thing to understand is the FRCA, everyone does it at their own speed. Okay, so the way it used to be is that you had to be in a training job in the UK for a minimum of 1 year before you even attempted the primary.
Okay.
And then after that, you had to do another year of training to get the full fellowship. So the way, the thing in India, all degrees are basically awarded at the end of the course, and you get a terminal degree, and that is it. But that's very different in the UK. You can actually go through working 10 years in the UK without passing an FRCA. 10 years as an anesthetist. It's possible to do that without bothering to pass the FRCA. It's also possible to pass the FRCA and not be a consultant. And increasingly, it's becoming possible to be a consultant without an FRCA. Now that is properly confusing, isn't it?
So finally, for my audience, their interest would be, what is the best possible thing that they can do? So what will be your suggestion?
So the way it works is you have to think of training in the UK as what used to be called senior house officer training and is now called core training, and then specialist training. Core training used to be for 2 years as an SHO.
Okay.
By the end of that, you are expected to have passed your primary FRCA.
Okay.
So once you pass your primary FRCA, you're eligible to get into a registrar program. That is when you got into what was called specialist registrar program, and you were given something called a national training number, what was called NTN. Only with that, you could become a consultant. So when you passed your FRCA, got into a training program, so additional 5 years of training you underwent at a basic, intermediate and advanced level. So by the end of year 2 as a registrar, so this is 4th year into anesthetics, you would have been expected to pass your FRCA. So you were only a second year registrar typically when you passed FRCA. You did 3 more years of structured training after that and came out with what used to be called CCST and is now called CCT, Certificate of Completion of Training. You might have heard that term used. So only when you get on when you get a CCT, you get on what is called a specialist register. When you're on the register, you're allowed to apply for consultant positions. So that is the game.
I hope now everyone has got some clarity about how to become a consultant in UK. So this is the proper way. Sir, for example, so you have undergone almost 7 years of training.
In my case, it was a bit longer because I did my SHO training. I passed my exams very quickly because of my Indian qualifications. I had the knowledge base and I passed it. But then to get into a training program took a while. And then I did a year of pediatric anesthesia specifically and a year of research, which again is not added within those 5 years. You have to take time out of the program, do that research year and get back into the program and complete. So I trained all in all for 9 years actually in the UK after my MD of 3 years.
So can a post MBBS guy also do the same thing, sir?
Yes, many post-MBBS people can, but the thing with anesthesia there is that you often need a base specialty to have done. Anesthesia is regarded as a kind of super specialty, so immediately post-MBBS to get into anesthesia is difficult. Most people from India also who have gone and have done either medicine, so many would have an MRCP, some would have an MRCS, so they would have been surgeons and passed the exam, or at the bare minimum done a couple of years of medicine and accident and emergency. So what they're looking for is a well-rounded person with good medical knowledge, and then on top of that they layer the anesthetic training.
Okay, anesthesia is a subject in demand basically. That is what in developed countries what I'm
and I think it's a very important thing. We are recording this on the eve of World Anesthesia Day, and I think it's something that we should really talk about as well. That the scope of anesthesia in the UK is an extremely good one, and you are really you have a lot of professional pride as an anesthetist. You have a footprint in virtually all areas of the hospital, as we do in India actually. 10% of all doctors in the NHS are anesthetists. 10% of consultants in any hospital are anesthetists. So we are actually the single largest specialty of doctors. And there you actually have a lot of say in policy, in processes. Often most anesthetists are leading committees on various acute and especially acute care committees in hospitals, transfusion committees, mortality, morbidity, governance. So it's an entirely different way of looking at medicine actually if you do anesthesia.
So the anesthetist who is trained in UK is good for administration, I think, because he'll be knowing most of the other specialties and how the other departments how they work. So that's a separate, totally different topic to discuss. So next question is, we are very happy that you came back to India, sir.
Yeah.
But my question is, after becoming a consultant, after going through such a very hard journey in UK and spending almost more than a decade time in UK, what made you come back to India?
It's a question I'm asked often, and I'm still looking for the right answer. There are many people like me who have come back. I think, frankly, the West is a very structured, organized system. It's extremely good in many aspects, but sometimes life can become a bit repetitive and boring. It's like, you are just a pawn in the grand scheme of things, and things work or virtually on autopilot, and you fit right in and you enjoy it. Of course, most people, 90% of the guys I went with have stayed back. Only some of us have returned. For me, it was a mixture of professional and personal reasons, and often that's the case that elderly parents, kids, that sort of thing. That's why we come back. And to me, it also made sense to come back east, because I believe east is where the action is, and you can actually, as an individual level, make more of a difference into the quality of care of a system. I might be sounding idealistic, and but that's some idealism is necessary. And actually, you can make more of a difference in a system that is evolving like ours. You can inspire others. We ourselves can enjoy being amidst our own people. All those things, mainly social reasons, made me come back.
Thank you, sir. So, and you have a DNB Anesthesia program in your hospital under you. So, the students who are trained under you are doing very good after going there, because we know many of the students are in contact with us and they're doing a very good job. So, how different is the training in your center compared to other centers?
See, I try to adopt the same philosophy I learned as a trainee and I went through as a trainee. To me, training is not just about just the knowledge and mugging up books and passing exams. That is important, but competency-based training is, I think, where we should be looking at, and I think our DNB also is now slowly structured in that direction. It's basically a combination of three things: knowledge, skills, and attitudes. And for each of that, you have to train specifically. And then if you've noticed, that's how we train our guys as well. From a knowledge point of view, it is a no-brainer that you have to put in the hard yards. There are no shortcuts. Skills, again, tend to be technical and non-technical. The technical skills are finite, and anesthesia that way has quite a steep learning curve. Within 2 to 3 years, you become quite competent at most of the stuff that we do. But there is again scope for refinement. Where I think we are different from many other places is the emphasis on the non-technical skills, on things like communication, resource management, handling tough situations, and thinking of quality. The focus has to be on quality and patient centricity. I think these are things that whatever we stand from a podium and give a talk, it doesn't connect to the audience, but if they work with somebody who believes in that philosophy, and there are at least 5 of us in our department who have significant UK experience, and many like you who have trained from from excellence, centers of excellence. So when they see us work, I think we are the best motivators and examples that can be set for students. So our focus is basically competency-based training rather than just time-based training.
So thank you very much, sir. So this is the scope of FRCA. Now I think the audience understood what is the proper way of becoming a consultant in UK. It is not FRCA. It is not about that. It is about you have to go through the training. In the process, you will be doing FRCA, but becoming the consultant should be your target. That is what is the conclusion.
I agree. The advantage with an FRCA and with the especially with the CCT is that you are essentially employable all over the world once you have done that. Okay, a lot of systems like Australia, New Zealand, Canada, they have kind of based their systems along the UK lines. Okay, the US is a bit different, but even in the US, I know people from the UK who went there as visiting instructors to places like Ann Arbor, Michigan, and all that, and stayed back. Bottom line is a UK degree still has a lot of value, not only within the UK, but if you want to go, say, to the Middle East, you want to go to East Asia, you want to go to Australia, Canada, New Zealand, all those places recognize the CCT as the terminal and apex degree.
So they have to target getting the CCT.
That's right. If you want to be a consultant in the UK
or any country,
See, again, people ask me what is the difference between a consultant and a specialist.
Yeah.
At a level of working at the shop floor, they're much the same. You
Okay.
would probably be doing similar kind of work, similar kind of lists and stuff. But as a consultant, what it means is you have gone through the rigors of the system. For example, without wanting, you're a neuroanesthetist and I'm a pediatric anesthetist, but even wanting to be a pediatric anesthetist, I have done neuro anesthesia 3 times. Once as an SHO and twice as a registrar. So you would have visited the same specialty at various points in your training system.
Yeah.
So what it then means is you're a well-rounded professional with an interest in one particular area. In my case, it happens to be pediatric anesthesia.
One more last question, sir. So, what I found is in India the trend is doing DMs.
Yes.
So they finish their MD, and most of the Central Institute guys and many other people are directly doing DM after MD. So, do you have any opinion on that matter?
In fact, I have a very strong opinion on that. I think DMs is, in the grand scheme of things, DMs are here to stay, and it's very good to do. But I think you should realistically spend at least a year or 2 after your MD, rotate through various branches in a hospital like ours, for example, or any good hospital, which gives you a flavor of what it is to be that particular specialist.
Good.
Once you have understood that, once you know that that is what you want to do, definitely dive headlong into it. But don't jump into it just because you're good at cracking exams.
Good.
Because at the end of it, you get your DM and you come out and you feel, oh, I want to do general stuff. It is actually getting quite hard to be employed as a generalist once you're super specialized and when you're organ specific in your training.
So the next question is, sir, after spending a significant time in UK and for people like you, when you come back to India, so what is the scope of anesthesia practice and job opportunities and in India? That is what many of them want to know.
Yeah, I think that's a very good question, and no 2 experiences are going to be exactly similar. So I have to say that n=1 is my opinion. What has happened to me, I can tell you. I came back. I was looking for an opportunity to come back to India, and then only after coming back to India, I got some interviews, and I had a relatively soft landing in a good corporate hospital in Bangalore. By and large, what I find is most people who have returned end up in positions of leadership quite early on. And it's always a tricky thing because a lot of the Indian anesthesiologists who are trained exclusively in India are also extremely high caliber. It is not a question of an anesthetist who lands from the UK being automatically better than them. That is definitely not the case. Where I think Western trained guys especially score additionally is in thinking as holistic professionals. Most of them have other interests along with it. It could be management, it could be clinical quality, it could be governance. So especially corporate hospitals are looking for leaders and thought leaders along with practicing clinicians. And I think that is where a breadth of experience of over a decade that you have in the West makes you stand out slightly differently from an otherwise competent anesthesiologist.
Super, well said, sir. So, if a DNB is getting trained under you, so are you going to teach them all these things?
Definitely. I think every anesthetist is a leader, and I keep telling my our team also, as a student, you should think like a consultant. As a consultant, you should think like a head of the department. You should always, like they say, you should dress for the role you want, not the role that you have. So similarly, you should think for the role you want rather than the role you already have. So once you start thinking like that and develop a growth mindset, you can really reach there much quicker and in a much more graceful way than just if it were to be time-based. Yeah.
I hope all your questions have been answered. Thank you very much, sir, for coming into the interview, and this particular video will benefit many people. At least one person's life will be changed, and this is for 2 guys who asked me about this FRCA thing. Thank you all.
Happy to be a part of this. Any other follow-up questions, I'll be happy to answer later also.
Thank you.